new to the association and to the industry and to the committee. So Bill has graciously agreed to take one of the really tough technology questions today. So, the Minnesota Cable Association represents Minnesota's cable providers, both large and small. For example, today we sit in Comcast footprint. And as we move outside the metro, we represent companies like Charter, Mediacom, all the way up to Schobert's Media, up in River Falls. Minnesota Cable is governed by a 13-member board made up of folks from all of these companies, and we encourage all of you to use us as a resource. And yes, we are a board of competitors, but as I suspect with many industries, we have more in common than we don't. So we work on legislative initiatives together as a whole. We're very proud of our company's contributions to Minnesota's economy, from direct jobs working for any of our member companies, to the jobs they support across the state due to the services they provide. They invest hundreds of millions of dollars each year in capital expenditures, upgrading, maintaining, and expanding their capabilities to provide the services that Minnesotans expect and need. Many of our companies are diverse and have a number of facets to their businesses, but the core services that cable companies provide that I think the committee is interested in is broadband, voice, and video. The chairman had specifically asked that we make distinctions about technology when we're talking about them, so I want to do a little clarification around that. When we say voice, what we're talking about is what you will hear referred to as VoIP, or voice over internet protocol. And that's phone service delivered over broadband technology. You might not know that the phone that you use is VoIP, as it still involves a traditional phone. It might be on your desk or on your wall. But this is a technology that lets you make phone calls using a broadband internet connection versus a regular phone line. And these calls can connect to the regular telephone network. When we're talking about broadband in the cable industry, we're talking about broadband using the same cables that provide pictures and sound to your T-set, or we're talking about fiber, which our industry has deployed extensively in Minnesota and is in the process of expanding. Broadly speaking, cable is regulated in Minnesota statute in Chapter 238. Broadband is also federally regulated, as is voice at the FCC, and video is regulated at the FCC and with local governments, as franchise requirements are spelled out in Chapter 238 in Minnesota law. Basically, a franchise is the agreement a cable company has with local governments to use the right of way. I wanted to highlight a few other activities that legislators might see us involved in or should be aware of on behalf of their constituents. First, companies like Comcast, Charter, they all have assistance programs to provide reduced prices on broadband in the home for families with kids eligible for the school lunch program, seniors, students, HUD program. So these aren't promotions, they're not offers, they're programs that put internet service within reach for qualifying families. So if you need more information on those services, we'd be happy to provide that. We also have a board member who serves on the broadband task force, so if committee members have questions on that, we're happy to be a resource. And we do have 3 member companies that received broadband funding during the last announcement of grants, and Mediacom was also one of those companies, so we're happy to talk about that as well. I know broadband funding isn't within the jurisdiction. Broadband, I know, is of interest to all of you. And then lastly, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of the broadband conference put on by ourselves in the Minnesota Telecom Alliance and also the wireless industry. We'll be talking not just about broadband funding, but also regulatory policy items will be discussed at as well that would fall in the jurisdiction of this committee too. And that's coming up in February, and we have elected officials like yourselves, policy experts, industry stakeholders who will all play a role. So we'd love to have you attend, even if you can't attend the whole thing. Just stop by a little bit as your schedule permits. And we also like to showcase some of the cool technology stuff that is easier seen rather than talked about. So other than that, my cell phone is up on the slide if you ever have any questions. And otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk a little bit about the industry and technology, and then that's all done.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Please state your name. Welcome to the committee, and please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Bill Jensen. I'm the Group Vice President for Mediacom. I cover a 6-state area, but my region is based in Waseca, Minnesota. I reside in Lakeville, Minnesota as well. So a couple of quick things for you. Anna Boroff is our new executive director, and we welcome Anna. She's been with us for a couple of months. Prior to that, you might remember Mike Martin. Mike had served as our executive director for the NCCA for 34 years. So we expect Anna to be here for another 34 years, just like Mike. Okay. A couple of quick items. I've been the president of the Minnesota Cable Communications Association now for 7 years. When we look at the size of cable communications companies in Minnesota, certainly Comcast Communications is the largest, Charter Communications is second, and Mediacom is the third largest, but all of the companies provide service not just in metropolitan or urban areas, but also rural areas as well. My company provides service in some of the metropolitan areas, Lake Minnetonka, Savage Fire Lake, but all throughout Minnesota in the rural areas like the Iron Range and southern and western and southeastern Minnesota. A couple of things to note, and I'll touch on broadband briefly because our broadband networks are what helps us deliver not just our video products, but also our high-speed data products. And more importantly here today for the commission's concern rather, is of course telephony products. Literally all of the Minnesota Cable Communications Association member companies offer telephony service, both residential and businesses, and have done so since the beginning of the 21st century, 2001. For the cable industry, we've been pushing out our networks further. Our networks have primarily been a copper or a hybrid fiber coaxial-based architecture, so a combination of fiber to deliver our signals and services long distances, and then the coaxial cable network along the neighborhood streets and byways, and then a small flexible coaxial drop to the consumer's home. As we've moved on, and I've been a cable guy for 33 years, we continue to deploy more and more fiber closer to the consumer. You've heard of various network architectures, whether it's HFC, the hybrid fiber optic coaxial network, fiber to the premise, fiber to the home, and most recently there's a project in southern Minnesota called fiber to the farm. So these are all exciting technologies, but pushing fiber closer to the end user. So a couple of things as we talk about the modernization of telecom here in Minnesota. You'll hear about perhaps some of my telephone friends and the wireless operators. There are approximately 35 states that have modernized their telecom laws throughout the various years. We're looking for some specifics here in Minnesota, but the latest telecom regulations on the books probably haven't seen any major reform for close to 100 years. Now that in itself might not mean a lot, but we believe that the modernization of telecom laws and statutes helps everybody, not just those in the metropolitan communities, but those in the rural communities. Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP, telephone service that most companies offer today, and specifically cable operators like Comcast, Charter, and Mediacom, is we use our cable wires, the fiber optic cable, the coaxial feeder cable, and the drop wire into a consumer's home with a modem, and it's telephone service. It's different for the most part than the service that consumers get from non-cable operators. Oh, by the way, those services are portable. So if you have Mediacom phone service and you move out of Mediacom service to move to Comcast, you can port your number. You can obtain a new number if you want. The technology is very portable and easy to work with. So really, without boring you with a lot of technology here, I'm going to be here today to talk to you about our industry and our member companies, but also hopefully take some of your questions that you might have relative to the cable industry's offering of not just broadband services, but specifically telephone service. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Members, any questions? Representative Hilstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, we continue to see push for deregulation of voice over internet and a claim that cable companies cannot comply with the protections that our citizens have received from computers when they phone lines, and a mandate that those services actually be provided. Why do you believe that you cannot comply with those standards?
Mr. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Hilstrom, great question. Actually, we're already complying with many of those. We deliver a 911 service. We're part of the directory listings. All phone numbers that transfer in out of the telephone industry here in Minnesota portable. We can also assign new numbers. The challenge that we face, and it's not a great hurdle, is that our networks need AC power and sometimes DC power to back up those networks. So if there's a commercial power outage, we back up our networks with standby battery power supplies. So there can be a commercial power outage due to any number of outages. Like the substation might have an issue, a transformer on a pole or a bulb might go down. But we do back up those networks. The challenge for us is when it comes to standby battery power, and in some cases generators. When it comes to the standby battery power, most of those batteries today that are either pole mounted or mounted in a bulb, they not only last 3 to 4 hours to keep the network up and running, to keep phone service available for consumers.
Representative Hilstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in the event that you then can't provide that service, then they go without 911 coverage, they go without the access to emergency services, is that what you're telling me?
Mr. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Hilstrom, that's true. Most of the outages that as an industry we incur are less than an hour. So for the most part, our networks are always up and running via standby battery power or standby generator. Now there are other types of outages not necessarily related to power. It could be a fiber cut, which we tend to get in Minnesota during the warmer months. It can be in the winter months. A car actually comes into contact with the line and take that number and have to repair.
Representative Hilstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, one of the reasons why we have mandated for 100 years that our residents have access to landlines has been so that they have access to emergency services. However, voice over internet consistently comes in for an exception from that. When you come again for that exception, would you be open to amendment for liability for any loss of emergency services or any financial loss to citizens or loss of medical ability based on the inability for medical services to arrive based on the loss of your services? Would you be open to liability for those financial costs?
Mrs. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Hilstrom, certainly willing to talk about it. That's quite a large hopper that you've presented here.
On purpose.
Yes, I appreciate that. Always willing to do a deeper dive and discuss it. We've been able to get over those, I don't want to call them hurdles, but I'll call them opportunities in many of those 35 states that I mentioned that have reformed the telecom regulations. So happy to come back and peel back the video.
Thank you.
Representative Hilstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the final question. Do you have liability in any of those other states for the loss, any harm that is caused to the residents for their inability to access emergency services?
Mr. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Hilstrom, I would say yes. I'm trying to think of California right now because we always have so much in California on a number of fronts. But I believe we do. It's codified in the state regulations. And if you'll allow me, after this session, I'll see what I can dig up and provide it to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, just following up on Representative Bill Street's inquiry, why do you think that someone who uses VoIP as an application providing telephone service should be relieved of consumer protections in the telephone industry that have been in effect for a century?
Just to address, it's a different application.
Mr. Chairman, and I don't think that we're advocating any relief of any regulatory rules or statutes. It's a different technology than I want to call it POTS, plain old telephone system. That is a much lower voltage technology. The VoIP technology that we use in our industry allows you to, number one, I believe that over the years we've been able to demonstrate that through bundling or even just with VoIP telephone service, that in many cases it can be more cost effective. Not all, but more cost effective than perhaps the traditional wire-based methods. But there are challenges, no doubt. So we're not asking for any relief, but we're successful in the other states where it has been deregulated further.
Representative Johnson.
Well, that doesn't provide me much assurance. I mean, the point is, irrespective of the way the telephone message is provided between two people, I don't care if it's VoIP or old analog, I don't understand why we would remove consumer protections that have been in place and have served our state well for a long time. And other than going into kind of a meandering of the different technologies, I haven't heard a good explanation why that's a good idea.
Right.
So that's just a comment. You don't need to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions, members? Oh, Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just kind of wondering about the broadband grants. As I was just looking over the last, I think it was 42 grants that was awarded, I did not see any of the major telecom applying for those. And specifically, I'm thinking of a specific constituent of mine who lives in Carlos Township, is serviced by CenturyLink. And CenturyLink is not interested in speeding up his service, but yet he's not in another area, in a co-op telecom area that he can get service by and possibly then have that business apply for grants that speed up his internet. And he is a small business owner as well.
Ms. Borrow? Or Mr. Jensen?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative Branson, the folks from CenturyLink and the telephone companies are testifying actually next, so that might be a question. And I know they did receive some of the broadband grant funding, so they might be better equipped to answer that.
And Mr. Chairman, Representative Franson, from an industry standpoint, we had about a half a dozen Minnesota Cable Communications Association awarded, the state of Minnesota awarded broadband grants. At MediaCom, we were awarded 3 broadband grants, just over $650,000 for this year, 2017, and it's a 2-year plan, so into 2018. 2 areas are unserved areas. One is the town of Vail in northern Minnesota, up on the Iron Range. The second one is on the Iron Range outside of Hibbing in the town of Harris. And the last one is a project that we're literally just wrapping up right here in Metro Minneapolis, the city of Medina. Those 3 projects represent over $650,000 in grants. Now, if I might, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Franson, Representative Franson, the whole, and I don't want to speak for Deed, but in the 3 years that I've participated in the program, the Board of Broadband Grant Program, which allows the operator to interact with the community, create a partnership. So in reality, that grant program, in a perfect sense, has 3 people seated at the table. The state of Minnesota, represented by Dee, the communications provider, the broadband operator, so in this case, Mediacom, and then last but not least, the city. We found over the years that when it comes to extending broadband, and not just video, not just high-speed data, but through our networks, also VoIP telephony, that it takes really three to tango here, because most of the unserved and underserved areas now that don't have adequate access to broadband, because they don't have the housing densities there, meaning that it's not cost effective literally for any operator to extend broadband to those areas. So I can cite in particular the city of Medina area, where many of the lots are minimally zoned 5-acre lots, long setback for the homes, long driveways, and many of those homes in Medina, there just aren't a lot of homes, so the city sat down and contributed to this project over 18 miles of construction. They contributed $120,000 of the city's funds to assist us in extending broadband to those unserved homes in that area. So I can certainly speak to the grant program, the broadband program. I can't speak on the telephony side. That'll be up here in a couple minutes. Okay.
Thank you.
I hope I answered your question.
I'm sure Bartle or CenturyLink would be a good,
Representative Khrushchev.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a quick question for the testifier. When the regulations that were put in place 100 years ago, was that closer to Dr. Graham Bell's technology or the fiber technology we have today?
Mr. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Khrushchev, what a great question. I'll have to look that up. I would say with
Representative Khrushchev.
And thank you. So just to follow up to that, to the testifier, wouldn't it be prudent that maybe we review those regulations to be more in step with the technology that has evolved?
Mr. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Khrushchev, well, absolutely. That's why I'm here today. I think certainly no reform is going to be perfect, but there are some great advantages to continuing to move forward and really to get to the next level of technology. And it benefits everybody, really, not just cable companies, not just telephone companies. It benefits the consumer, both the rural, the metropolitan, and the residential, but also the business consumer as well.
Other questions, members? Seeing none, thank you both very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Christensen, welcome back to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. For the record, my name is Frank Christensen. I'm the President and CEO of the Minnesota Telecom Alliance. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. So the Minnesota Telecom Alliance is a trade association, and we represent 45, I call them broadband providers, but the traditional landline telephone companies that serve rural Minnesota. Our members range from CenturyLink, and we have one member that has 235 customers. Pretty much every telco in Minnesota with the exception of Frontier and Windstream. And our members have transitioned from landline telephone providers to broadband providers. I want to talk a little bit about that technology as I get through this presentation, and maybe answer some of the questions that have been brought up so far. Who we're not the cellular providers. They're represented by AT&T here today. And we're not VoIP providers like Vonage or MagicJet. Our members started off as traditional telephone companies, so we had copper lines that went to consumers' homes. And over the last several years, our members have replaced those lines with fiber. And the goal is to get fiber closer and closer to the customer. And the reason that's our goal is because our networks have transformed, and they're not what we call TDM-based or traditional telephone-based. They're IP-based. And so as we're moving out closer and closer, some of the technologies that we're using are some of our members have built fiber to the premise already, gone straight there, and others have gone fiber to the node, which means they put out a cabinet and they'll bury fiber from the
central office cabinet, and then they reuse existing copper plant from the cabinet to the consumer. And then over the course of time, as those loops go bad or they need to be replaced, then they're replaced with fiber. Matter of fact, I can't think of one of my members that carries cable anymore. So we're pushing that fiber further and further out. Some consumers are just really hard to get to, and there's just no cost-effective way for us to get to them with fiber or with copper. So we do have some members that are using fixed wireless to transport broadband. To give you an idea of how much all of this costs or the investment that we're making in Minnesota, just my members, just those 45 members I talked to you about, invested over $240 million in 2015 in capital with vendors. And that number rose to over $251 million in 2016. Now, if you put all of our industry segments together, the telephone companies, the cable companies, and the wireless companies, that number jumps up to over $705 million in 2015, and over $716 million in 2016. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're regulated, because that falls under the jurisdiction of this committee, and do that in conjunction with some of our competitors. And I'll give you an example. I have 3 telephone numbers that come to this device. My home phone number through a network adapter that goes over the internet. My home phone number is here. Obviously my cellular number rings here. And then I have a Skype phone number that also rings to this device. And all 3 of those services, even though they do the same thing, are rated completely different. My home number is regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, the Department of Commerce, the Office of the Attorney General, and the FCC. My cellular service is regulated by the FCC, and my Skype number isn't regulated by anybody. So that gives you an idea of the regulatory environment that we're dealing with today. Wireless carriers are regulated unlike our wireless carriers are regulated by the FCC, and the Vonage and Magic Jacks of the world are deemed information services, so they're likely regulated by the FCC. Basically, we are the only producer on electricity or gas or anybody else. We're the only ones that have competitors. I'll talk a little bit about how our services are regulated from the consumer standpoint. So most of our members bundle our services. We offer voice, video, television, and then high-speed internet or broadband. And those services, even though they come on the same bill, are regulated very differently. I explained to you how the telephone line is regulated. And as Mr. Jensen said, the television services are regulated by local franchise, and broadband services are regulated by the FCC. So where does that leave us? Well, I can tell you from personal experience, as my family owns a telephone company with 1,200 subscribers in South Central Minnesota, that our consumers care more about what the state doesn't regulate than what the state does regulate. When their services go out, they don't care if their phone gets fixed right away because they got their cell phone. They care that their TV gets fixed pretty quick, and now they really care if their internet's not working. We're going to hear about that first. To how the consumer care about how they're rated or how they're restored. One of the questions that came up earlier about, you know, the relationship around with the wire and wireless. The only thing wireless is between the tower and your handset. Once it gets to the tower, it goes on our networks. And as a matter of fact, most of my members are working together now on a request proposal from AT&T to build fiber to their towers. So that is very correct, very true.
Representative Woodruff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Christensen, is it still critical being able to provide anyone service by having a solid wired, hardwired system to be able to conduct today's communication using wireless and or hardline services?
Chairman, Representative Driscoll, I think if I understand the question, the answer is yes. The question is how they get that service and where they get it from.
Representative
at 1:05 is and he had called me this summer, wondering about the state grants or even federal grants, and really was unable to get anywhere, especially when it leaves it into the hands of the service provider, whether or not they want to participate in the broadband grant program. So to my constituent, his name is Bill, what do I tell Bill when I get the opportunity to discuss that I had this conversation with him?
Mr. Christensen.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Franson, we're having the beginning of the conversation about this. I'd be happy to work with you to get the specifics of that, on that case. I will tell you on a broader part of this, we're working with the Office of Broadband Development, and let me be clear, I'm a big supporter of the broadband grant program. 3/4 of those grants have gone to my members, so it's truly getting to the truly unserved parts of the state that's intended to. What's figuring into all this, it's not operating in a vacuum. There are changes, like I mentioned earlier, there are changes in the Federal Universal Service Fund program that was designed for telephony, to get telephony everywhere, and that's migrated over to broadband. So now we're dealing in a situation where money is coming into the state for the first round. You heard here talk about CAF 2. I went to the price cap carriers and to build out broadband to more areas. There could be plans to build out broadband this year in that area. That's why they didn't give a grant on top of that. I don't know those specifics, but I'm happy to work with you and CenturyLink to find out. I will tell you that beginning in 2017, there's a new form of Connect America Fund for the smaller carriers, and they have the choice to do a rate of return path or an alternative Connect America model. And that, the Connect America model was accepted by 14 companies in the state of Minnesota. It's over $100 million a year to year, and they so it's a piece in the puzzle. I know we've had some very exciting partnerships that have popped up through this process, and if your constituent is not in one of those pieces, we've got some ideas with OBD that we can dial that in and get them in.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Members, any other questions? With that, thank you very much, and I think we're on to Mr.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Paul Works, and I'm the state president of AT&T Minnesota. It's a pleasure today to report investment in our wireless network. Let me first address what we see as the future for AT&T. I think we can all agree that the world has gone wireless, and the trend will only continue to grow exponentially. More than 47% of American homes longer and instead to use wireless only. Mobile audiences have grown 41% since 2014, compared to desktop audiences growth of only 1%. As the millennials, the demand for wireless broadband has exploded. But it's not just the younger generation driving this change. According to AARP's December 15 report, the use of smartphones and tablets continues to grow in Americans 50 and older. In fact, nearly 9 in 10 adults over 50 own some type of mobile device, according to the report. It also showed that over half of the adults over 50, and nearly 3/4 of adults 50 to 59 own a smartphone. This increase in wireless use is largely driven by streaming and downloading video and the increase in connected devices. Wireless is driving our economy, and our society is driving its future. We're very excited about the next phase of wireless technology, 5G. AT&T is aggressively pursuing 5G evolution plans. You may wonder exactly, what does 5G mean? We expect 5G to deliver speeds 10 to 100 times faster than today's average 4G.
Mr. Worthwell, are you coming up on there?
There will be commencement by remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
He's got
Customers will see speeds measured in gigabits per second, not megabits. For reference, at 1 gigabit per second, you can download a TV show in less than 3 seconds. Customers will also see a much lower latency with 5G. Latency is how long it takes for you to press play on a video app for the video to start streaming on your device. We expect 5G set to lay the foundation for our evolution to this technology. What's pushing the drive towards 5G? To give you an illustration, at AT&T, data on our mobile network has increased 250,000% since 2007, and the majority of that traffic is video. 5G's promise of greater speed and overall network performance brings opportunities not only for video, but also for the Internet of Things, 4K video, augmented and virtual reality, smartphones, smart cities, autonomous vehicles, and much, much more. The path to 5G encompasses both fixed and mobile solutions. We continue to collaborate with more than a dozen global technology companies around establishing 5G standards. And the continued deployment of our 4G LTE advanced network remains essential to laying the foundation of our evolution of 5G. In fact, we expect to be reaching peak theoretical speeds of up to 1 gigabit per second at some cell sites in 2017. 5G is also the next generation of wireless technology that will fuel economic growth. The full potential of smart cities will be unlocked by 5G networks and small cells, creating jobs as well as entire new industries, according to a new report by Accenture Strategy. Communities that support 5G wireless technology will see significant economic and community benefits. According to the study, 5G technology is expected to create 3 million new jobs and boost annual GDP by $500 billion. This will be driven by a projected $265 billion investment in technologies. Of that $275 billion, $93 billion is expected to be construction, with the remainder allocated for network equipment, engineering, and planning. At AT&T, we're making significant investments to prepare for the 5G revolution. The slide we have before you talks is a graphical representation of what I mean when I talk about small cell. We will continue to densify our networks this year through the deployment of small cells and the use of technologies like carrier aggregation, which increases peak data speed. Small cells will be crucial to the 5G evolution. Small cells are low profile, compact, and unobtrusive. Small cells consist of more small antennas and some electronics, and they can be attached to utility poles, or the exterior side of buildings. The deployment of small cell technologies will innovate steps AT&T is taking to meet increased demand, enhance our network, prepare for 5G, and help bring customers faster download speeds, improve call quality, and better overall wireless experience. In fact, the entire wireless industry is very actively engaged in the small cell deployment. These are some of the pictures of small cells in our communities. Some of the other steps we're taking as part of our 5G evolution. Last fall, we announced the industry's first 5G business customer trial in Austin, Texas, with Intel and Ericsson using millimeter wave technology, which can deliver multi-gigabit speeds using an unlicensed band spectrum. Last October, we expanded our millimeter wave trial outside our traditional 21-state wireline service area. We're currently conducting a national trial at a multi-unit dwelling unit in Minneapolis, which gives us the potential to reach a new customer base outside our non-wireline states. In short, using millimeter wave wireless technology, multi-gigabit signal from a network building connect the fiber to neighborhoods, and then connect it to the faster internet speed and wire. This is the first of its kind trial for AT&T. It uses a combination of wired and wireless technology. Some of the pictures here are of the actual antennas that are on top of this building. This is the building blue in the uptown area, and then we have two other recipient buildings. I can tell you when we were there doing some testing, we're offering that service to residents at 500 megabits synchronous. We can take that up to 1 gigabit synchronous. Bless you. It's very exciting for Minneapolis to be the site for the national AT&T trial. This trial is occurring in multiple apartment complexes in Minneapolis. I've already talked about the needs. If successful, this technology will make it possible for us to potentially deliver an internet connection to more locations where they previously been able to operate home internet connection. this slide, we've launched our Project AirGate, a transformative technology from AT&T Labs that could one day deliver low-cost, multi-gigabit wireless internet speeds over power lines. This is one of the most ambitious, inventive projects in AT&T Labs history. We have over 200 patents and applications for Project AirGate and plan to begin field trials in 2017. Over time, the reach of our 5G deployments will be enhanced even more as customers discover new and innovative mobile-first video services. Not only are we making these investments in our networks across the country, we're also investing heavily in our wireless broadband network in Minnesota. For example, AT&T invested more than $350 million in Minnesota from 2013 to 2015. That's over $100 million a year. Last year alone, we made over 1,200 network enhancements in over 270 communities across the state. That list is reflected here. Those investments include building new cell sites, expanding LTE service, and adding capacity to businesses. Our focus has been on investments that drive upgrades to reliability, coverage, speed, and overall performance for residents and businesses. We completed 3 major projects in the Twin Cities last year. We expanded our existing LTE network at the Mall of America. We built a distributed antenna system at 5 sites at the University of Minnesota campus to improve our network quality for students, faculty, and staff. And we launched a distributed antenna system at US Bank Stadium. This is in addition to the DAS system that we already have at TCNA in Minnesota and the DAS system we have on the campus of Mayo Clinic in Rochester. In 2015 and 16, we continually made enhancements to our network across the state. Plan to do so in 2017. Very proud of our investments in Minnesota and our network that we have here. We hope to have the opportunity to do more in the coming year. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wertz. Representative Sweeney.
Thank you, Representative Hoppe. Just a thank you from the AT&T just your participation with some of the schools of higher education in my district, Minnesota West, with some of the grant programs and your community involvement. I appreciate that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Swedzinski. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Mr. Wertz. From what I read, it seems like 5G is still, with respect to being used by most people, 5-6 years off at the earliest. Am I reading the research correct? Is it still always on to actually get a chance to use it? It's not something that's going to be available in the next year or so.
Mr. Wertz.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Johnson, you're correct. The standards, the international standards, have not even been established yet. We expect that those will be done, if not the latter part of this year, early 2018. But we are not planning for 5 or 6 years. This is going to be a race to first. I mean, between us, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, other carriers, and then other countries will try to get this technology deployed as fast as possible. Once we see those standards established, it's going to come very quickly. I don't know that we'll wait 5 or 6 years. Our corporate leadership has been very public about our future plans. So, I don't want to say anything Wall Street impacting, so I'll just say in the next few years that we will see that technology begin to be deployed.
Mr. Wertz, we have a long history here in the Commerce Committee of keeping those sort of comments to ourselves, so feel free. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It says there are some serious spectrum issues that need to be resolved yet regarding 5G availability. And I get the sense that distance and being blocked by walls and other buildings, that sort of thing, is a huge challenge.